Hazem Seeker. Welcome to Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, our weekly look at the world of business and finance. This week, trouble in the Eurozone. Strikes in Greece as fears of a Greek debt default engulfs markets. The single currency faces its biggest crisis yet. Rubble economy. Gazans find new ways to build their homes as Israel continues to block some imports. Toyota unplugged. Car giant's trouble spreads to hybrid vehicles. Well, to call any nation or group of nations by a derogatory name would show poor taste, but the financial markets have rounded up a group of European nations whose acronym, unfortunately, is PIGS. Those nations are Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece and Spain. The latest bout of name-calling was triggered by Greece's debt troubles. That has now escalated to bring into question the Eurozone's ability to deal with its debt crisis. Greece's troubles began late last year when it admitted having more debt than it had declared. Greece's budget deficit for 2009 stands at 12.7%, but Eurozone club members are only allowed to run a budget deficit of 3%. This is how Greece compares to Italy, Portugal and Spain. Greece has the biggest budget deficit of the 16 nations in the Eurozone. The country's total public debt is $406 billion. Italy has the largest public debt, $2.45 trillion. If Greece were to slash its public sector deficit in half, it would push the unemployment rate to 16% from the current 9.3%. Greece says it will act to cut its debt, but it faces an uphill task to convince unions. Barnaby Phillips reports from Athens.
Suddenly, all of Europe is worried about what's happening on the streets of Athens. Public workers gathered outside Parliament. This, the first significant opposition to the government's spending cuts. Many fear that their small salaries are now going to get even smaller. But it's not clear that these civil servants have the power to make the government back down. Greeks often describe their civil service as inefficient and overstaffed. But those inside it say that's not fair. Vespina works at the Ministry of Culture. She told me civil servants are now scapegoats for a crisis caused by reckless bankers.
Everyone knows that our salary or our health insurance or our public education are not responsible for this global crisis. We want those who are responsible, they should pay.
On a popular TV satire program, the normally mild-mannered Prime Minister is portrayed as a bloodthirsty butcher. But George Papandreou seems to have majority backing for his proposals, even as he takes a knife to the public sector.
Around 70% of Greek public support the adjustment program promoted by the government. This is a cross-party consensus. Both major parties are behind the government, and the major opposition party are behind the reforms. And there is a general understanding that the time has come for changes that had been postponed to actually take place.
The problem is that these kinds of protests may grow as more and more ordinary Greeks start to feel the pain of the economic austerity program. And in that case, the danger is that the consensus about what needs to be done could break down. In Paris, George Papandreou met the French President Nicolas Sarkozy and promised he would not reverse his policies.
Of course, we discussed the financial, political problem that Greece faces today, the issue of the large deficit. And I would like to make it very clear. We have submitted a very specific stability and growth program to the Commission, which has been approved by the Commission. And we are absolutely decided to make sure that it is implemented in every detail.
Back in Athens, the banner says, "We won't pay." But events are moving fast. The next few days will be critical as Greece wrestles with its debts. And European leaders wonder if they can afford to allow Greece to fail.
Greece is the current focus of Europe's economic worries, but Spain's economy is 4 times the size of Greece, and it's suffering too, as Hamish MacDonald reports from Madrid.
It's Saturday night in Madrid. This is what's known as Botellón, the big bottle. Thousands of young people gather outdoors to drink cheap alcohol, too poor to go to the bars, too bored to do anything else.
Alcohol helps you relax. People forget about their daily problems.
This is the proof of Spain's chronic unemployment. 20% of the entire population is looking for work. Many end up here, queuing outside the job centre. For young people, it's worse. 44% are unemployed. Enrique is 32. He lost his job as a business development manager for a construction company back in November. The same day, his younger brother also lost his job. Well educated and from an affluent background, the competition is so fierce, Enrique hasn't managed to land a single job interview.
Depressing because I cannot get married, I cannot buy a house, and if I don't get a job, I think I will have to stay like this a lot of time, you know.
It's not just construction jobs disappearing. The bulk of the losses in January came from the services sector. The labour laws here make it easy for young people to be sacked, so they are nearly always the first to go. All of this has implications far beyond the coffee shops of Spain. The entire European economy is in trouble, and this stuff, the euro, is not worth what it once was. There are serious fears that it could drop in value even further. Spiralling national debt and rising unemployment in Spain, as well as Greece and Portugal, has raised expectations the European Union may be forced to bail them out.
Spain's economy is 4 times bigger than the economy of Greece, and in that sense, you know, if Spain's in trouble, then Europe is in trouble.
And that's what's bringing leaders to Brussels, the fear that these employment queues will stretch beyond Spain and Greece. The common market was supposed to make Europe stronger. Today, that's not quite so certain.
So Greece has been living beyond its means with a bloated public sector. That and other problems at one of the smallest countries in the Eurozone have escalated into the biggest challenges facing Europe's monetary union. Eurozone leaders say they will assist Greece, but they have offered very little detail on how that will work. Well, joining me now is Jan Randolph. He's an economist and the head of sovereign risk at IHS Global Insight. So how will the Eurozone bail out Greece, given that its treaties expressly bar its central banks from doing just that?
It's a very good question. The last thing the ECB wants to create is moral hazard, encourage governments to basically not retain a grip on their budgets, encourage bad behaviour. Now, the latest situation is obviously driven from the markets themselves, and they've expressed solidarity and support for Greece under a certain amount of pressure from speculators in the debt markets. And they said they will do everything to maintain financial stability and the cohesion of the Eurozone. How that actually will happen, what mechanisms will be actually used to support Greece, and that actually means how is Greece going to refinance itself, and will it be able to refinance itself, what kind of support it will get from the Europeans is yet to be determined.
Well, so they've gotten together then to bail out Greece, but there are a number of other countries that are facing similar debt problems. Spain, Portugal, Ireland. Can any of them be next?
This is certainly what the markets are thinking, and that's why you've had selling in Spanish, Portuguese, Irish bonds as well, although not to as great extent as Greece. Greece is clearly in the frame, and its credit rating is worse than all those just mentioned. Yes, I mean, the problem for the European Union is that once it provides a bailout type mechanism for Greece, you'll get a Me Too problem. Should the markets then refocus on Spain or Portugal, they too will ask for equal treatment from the European Union. So it's very important that the Eurozone members, and in particular here, those who call the shots really, which is Germany, first and foremost, but they wouldn't want to act alone. They would always want to act as a European front for a European solution, so they would have to get France on board. It's very important for them to come up with a mechanism which would provide support for all or any country that gets into this sort of financial difficulty. Now, there will be a condition, just like the IMF, is prepared to provide loan support with a nice big round dollar number, which essentially can cover all refinancing needs and support basic liquidity in a country, this sort of money is only given on condition that the host country receiving the money meets certain targets. In other words, the host country receiving the aid needs to move in the right direction as far as policy is concerned. So it's all very contingent, but that's the way it ought to work, and it ought to be a general principle, and it should really be given to the ECB the responsibility to do this. In other words, it's got to act a bit like the IMF does, but be given the powers to do so.
All right, Jan Randolph in London, many thanks for your time. Counting the Cost returns in just a moment. All they want is a roof over their heads, but a shortage of construction supplies is forcing the people of Gaza to recycle what's left of their destroyed homes. Welcome back to Counting the Cost, your weekly business stop here on Al Jazeera. Well, Gaza's economy was on the brink of collapse long before Israel's three-week war in December 2008. Contrast that to the West Bank. Now, according to the International Monetary Fund, it says the West Bank expanded 7% in 2009, but unemployment still stands at 20%, and the jobless rate in Gaza is currently 34%. Well, the blockade imposed by Israel is not helping. Its siege prevents building materials from getting into the Strip, so the rubble from destroyed houses becomes the only available material to make concrete blocks to build new ones. Casey Kaufman explains.
It's been a year, and he just couldn't wait any longer. Salam's home was destroyed by a bulldozer during Israel's war on Gaza. He started to run out of money for his rented flat, so he decided to build a smaller home where his old house once stood. He's made some progress, but he's not happy with the quality of his building materials.
These blocks aren't as good. They're not straight and they break easily and quickly. They're not good, but it's all we can do.
The blocks are made from what's left of Salam's destroyed home. He collects his own rubble, and then it ends up coming right back here in the form of concrete blocks. Yeah! Here's how the process works. After selecting the right type of rubble, Salam's nephew Ayad brings it to the factories that used to make concrete from gravel and cement imported from Israel. But these essential building items are still prevented from entering the Gaza Strip. Instead, the cement gets smuggled in from Egypt, and the gravel is produced from the rubble of Gaza, thanks to a local invention.
We created this machine because we didn't have any gravel to work with. These hammers hit the rubble over and over again until it's broken down into the perfect size gravel. It then falls through the filter.
But there's another problem. The demand for such concrete blocks is still high, but Gaza's rubble is running out. Destruction is everywhere you look in the north of the Strip, but much of the higher quality debris has been cleared. The price of such rubble has tripled in the past month, and Mazen is barely breaking even.
The solution is one of two options. Either they open the crossing so we can get more gravel, or the Israelis destroy some more homes so we can get more cheap rubble.
It's moving day, and Salam is upbeat. He's rented a truck to bring his belongings and children to his new home. Salam used to live in a 350 square meter building with the rest of his extended family. His 5-year-old daughter Shahed remembers the old house clearly and is always asking why it was destroyed. But for his 2-year-old son Badr, his first memories of a home will come from these 2 rooms without heating or plaster on the walls. It's quite a downgrade, but Salam is happy he finally has a roof for his children and wife, who didn't want to go on camera.
I don't care about the poor quality of the concrete blocks anymore. I'm just happy I finished building it. I'm in my own home now, and I feel relaxed.
But unless the border crossings are opened and building materials allowed into Gaza once again, many Palestinian families who are trying to rebuild their lives will be denied a home. Casey Kaufman, Al Jazeera, Gaza.
Well, Dr. Samir Abdallah is director of the Palestinian Economic Policy Research Institute, and he joins me now from Ramallah. Dr. Abdallah, thanks for being with us. Now, we're seeing two Palestinian economies going in different directions here. While the economy in Gaza continues to deteriorate under the Israeli blockade, things are improving in the West Bank where you are. What can Palestinians do to reverse this trend?
Because of the Israeli behavior that remained hostile and continue with closure policies, with roadblocks and checkpoints, with impediments to movement and access, impediments on the exports and imports. All this made the price of the growth that we are witnessing in the West Bank very high. We are striving for more than 3 years with bringing money for investment and expansionary fiscal policy, where the government is pumping more than $300 million a month in the economy. Half of this was in Gaza and half in the West Bank. The effect should be even more than double the level of economic growth we realized in 2009. If we want to see that anything that we build while the occupation continue will remain fragile, and the Israelis can reverse it at any time.
It is a fragile situation indeed, and you talk about the increased investment, but yet there is still a great deal of unemployment both in the West Bank and in Gaza. So investment and trade is one thing, but it doesn't seem to be at the moment having a huge effect on the employment situation. We have at least 40% unemployment in Gaza, something similar to that in the West Bank. What can be done to improve that? Are there prospects for job creation?
Yeah, just with relation to numbers, the unemployment in the West Bank is 15%, but it is also terribly high. It is not a low rate. In Gaza, it is 40%, as you said. We have the problem of unemployment is an accumulated problem since long, where our economy was not able to absorb the increase in the labor force. We have every year more than 60,000 new entrants to the labor force. The economy can only open a few thousand jobs. So this problem accumulated, and in the past, that created a flood of labor to the Israeli market. Now the Israeli market is no longer absorbing that big number. It is absorbing less than 50 to 60,000 laborers. In order to bring our economy back to a situation where it can absorb all our labor, the unemployed and the new entrants, it needs a lot of investment, and afterward it needs an independent economy. We need the occupation out of our country, and I believe if this happen, the unemployment problem should be over.
All right, Dr. Samir Abdallah in Ramallah, many thanks for your time. Now, the auto industry hasn't covered itself in glory when it comes to mass recalls of potentially dangerous cars. The Ford's Pinto tended to explode if rear-ended, but there are more recent examples as well. Some 109,000 Crown Victorias sold to the US police forces between 2003 and 2005 had wheels that would split at high speed. Just late last year, Ford recalled 4.5 million vehicles due to a faulty cruise control switch that could cause a fire even when the engine was turned off. And General Motors had to recall 850,000 vehicles equipped with heated windshield wiper fluid that could short-circuit and cause fires. So you'd be forgiven for thinking that Toyota was the only car maker with problems. Well, Harry Fawcett reports now from Tokyo on how the world's #1 car maker is trying to fix the damage to its image.
For one of its problems, at least, Toyota has a quick fix. Plug in the workshop computer, upload the solution to the glitch in the Prius's software, and the anxiety-inducing lag when braking in certain conditions should disappear.
It's very easy. It just takes 2 minutes.
Dealership garages across the country are at the front line in restoring the confidence of Toyota owners as one by one they address the issue, which has led to a recall of more than 400,000 models worldwide.
The situation could be better if Toyota had explained it earlier, but I don't feel that the problem needs a recall.
We are all working across the board for our customers. The sales department staff are contacting the customers by phone calls, booking appointments, and sending out direct mails. We will be responding to the situation fully. We will also be putting up notifications on the web to help assuage customers' concerns.
So this Prius has had its upgrade. Toyota's technicians around Japan are going to have to do this some 200,000 times as they battle to restore trust in the brand. And away from the shop floor, Toyota's leadership is fighting the same battle. None more so than the company's president, Akio Toyoda. He's promised to go to the United States to explain Toyota's actions there. The company faces 3 US congressional hearings where it's expected to answer for the sudden acceleration problems which have led to 8 million recalls around the world. Toyota has reportedly hired teams of lobbyists and PR executives as it aims to convince regulators that its actions so far have been sufficient.
So I think that they have been a little behind the 8 ball. Because they're not used to having to handle this kind of controversy. They're used to handling really good news, and it's a whole different ballgame when you're trying to do damage control.
Back in Tokyo, the upgraded Prius is marked, confirming it's gone through the recall process. 1 down, up to 437,000 Toyota hybrids to go. Harry Fawcett, Al Jazeera, Tokyo.
And that's just about it for this week. Here's our webpage for more. It's aljazeera.net/English. You'll find the exact link by clicking on the program's link on the front page. You'll also find previous episodes of the show there. The address again, aljazeera.net/English. That's it from me, Hazem Seeker, and the rest of the team. Goodbye.